Flashbulbs explode against the walls of a small Memphis funeral home as Elvis Presley takes a step forward. He is still in his army uniform, pressed and proper, a costume of control. It does nothing to steady his hands. The casket is open, the lid already raised, and his mother lies inside looking smaller than the woman who once anchored his entire world. He tries to breathe and cannot quite manage it. Outside the building, the sound leaks in through the walls. Fans crying, police shouting, reporters calling his name like this is just another performance he owes them. Someone near the back whispers that Colonel Parker does not want this scene. The king is not supposed to wobble. He is supposed to nod, endure, move along. Elvis ignores it. He always does when it comes to her. He leans over the casket anyway, lowering himself as if gravity has doubled. His lips move, fast and desperate, words meant for a woman who cannot answer. The room feels too tight, like it is closing around him. For a moment, his knees buckle. A cousin's arm slips around his waist and holds him up before he hits the floor. Elvis does not notice who it is. The chapel tilts, the edges blurring as his vision swims. The hymns keep playing, soft and polite, while cameras wait for the money shot. This is not just grief. This is exposure. Every second he stays upright feels like a negotiation between his body and his will. He straightens slowly, blinking hard, jaw clenched, face already learning the shape of survival. People will later say he was composed. They will say he was strong. What they will not see is how close he came to disappearing right there, swallowed by the weight of a single loss multiplied by 1,000 watching eyes. This funeral feels wrong to him, not sacred but dangerous, like a place where something permanent could be taken if he lets go for even a second. He knows, standing there, that whatever happens next will follow him for the rest of his life. And to understand how a moment this quiet became this deadly, you have to go back to the night a phone rang in an army barracks far from Memphis, carrying news that would pull the ground out from under him before he ever made it home. At the army post, Elvis Presley had learned how to make himself small. The days were mapped out in drills, inspections, and orders that did not care who he used to be. For the first time since fame found him, routine felt safe. He could wake up knowing exactly what was expected and go to sleep without cameras or questions. The uniform stripped him of choices, and in a strange way, that felt like relief. Then the phone rang. It was late enough that the barracks were quiet, the kind of quiet that makes bad news sound louder. The voice on the line came from home and carried that careful tone people use when they are already bracing you. His mother was in the hospital again. That part was not new. But this time, the pauses were longer. The doctors sounded afraid. Elvis listened without speaking, fingers tightening around the receiver as if grip alone could change the outcome. What followed was not panic, but negotiation. Commanders weighed regulations. Handlers weighed headlines. Everyone understood that this was not just a soldier asking for leave. This was Elvis Presley asking to go home, and there would be no such thing as privacy once he did. Permission came with conditions and a clock attached. He packed in silence, moving fast, afraid that if he slowed down the phone would ring again with worse news. The flight to Memphis was the longest of his life. Strangers stared openly, studying his face for signs of fear, grief, or collapse, like they were owed a preview. No one spoke to him, but he felt watched the entire way. By the time the plane landed, word had already spread. The car ride to the hospital crawled through traffic that should not have been there, people pulling over just to catch a glimpse through tinted glass. The parking lot was already filling when he arrived. Elvis pushed through the hospital doors without waiting for instructions, ignoring nurses who recognized him and froze. The smell hit him first, antiseptic and sickness. Then he heard his father. Vernon's voice cracked on a single sentence that barely made it out intact. "She's slipping." In that moment, Elvis understood that he was running out of time, and that no amount of fame, discipline, or distance could protect him from what was coming next. The hospital corridor smells like disinfectant and something sharper underneath it, a quiet panic that seeps into your clothes. Elvis is hurried past nurses who recognize him instantly and forget their training for half a second. Eyes widen, steps slow, then doors swing open, and he is inside a room where machines speak louder than people ever could. The steady beeping is too calm for what it represents. His mother lies in the bed, her body reduced to angles and stillness, breathing shallow, skin drawn tight by days of sickness that no one had explained to him honestly enough. She looks smaller than she ever did in his memory. Not frail exactly, but diminished, like part of her has already stepped somewhere he cannot follow. Elvis takes her hand and feels how light it is. He talks to her anyway, filling the space with his voice, telling her he is home now, that everything is fine, that she just needs to rest. He needs those words to be true, so he keeps saying them. The doctors hover nearby and choose phrases meant to soften the blow. They talk about complications and exhaustion, about how the body can only endure so much. Elvis hears what they are not saying. There is no fix waiting down the hall. There is no sudden turn. There is only time, and it is running out faster than anyone wants to admit. Outside the door, pressure builds. Colonel Parker wants a statement prepared, something calm and controlled in case the news breaks. Security whispers that the crowd outside has doubled since he arrived. An officer clears his throat and reminds Elvis that his leave has limits, that orders still apply even here. Each voice pulls at him from a different direction, but he does not let go of the bed. He plants himself there, as if proximity alone can hold her in place. Hours blur together. Nurses come and go. The machines keep talking. Elvis does not move, does not sit, does not eat. He watches her chest rise and fall and counts it without realizing he is doing it. When a doctor finally steps closer and places a hand on his shoulder, the touch is firm, unmistakable. "You should call the preacher now." The words land heavier than any headline ever could, and Elvis knows the moment he makes that call, there will be no place left to hide. When the call finally comes that she is gone, it does not arrive gently. It rips through the house and spills straight into the world outside. Graceland fills within hours, first with family and church friends who knew Gladys before she was famous by association, then with people who simply feel entitled to stand close to history while it breaks. Cars slow along the road. Some stop, others idle with engines running, as if waiting for something else to happen. Inside, Vernon moves like a man underwater. Papers are placed in front of him, and he stares at them too long before his hand remembers how to sign his name. Elvis stays near him, hovering, steadying, doing his best to be the one who holds things together, even as he feels himself cracking. Colonel Parker appears and disappears, voice low, already talking about optics, timing, and statements. The words feel obscene in the rooms where Gladys once laughed. Reporters gather fast. They cluster at the gates, then at the corners, then anywhere they can point a camera. They smell blood, not cruelty, just opportunity. Funeral plans turn into a quiet fight. The family wants something small and reverent. The public wants to say goodbye to their version of her. The army wants Elvis back where he belongs, in uniform and on schedule, grief or not. No one is wrong, and no one is willing to give. Every hour tightens the noose. The crowd outside grows thicker, louder, harder to manage. Police shift barricades and whisper into radios. The doors cannot stay closed forever, and everyone knows it. Elvis feels time pressing on him from all sides, each tick pushing him closer to a moment he does not feel equipped to survive. He has not slept. He barely eats. When he does close his eyes, he sees the hospital room again. The morning of the service arrives whether he is ready or not. He is dressed carefully, guided gently, moved through hallways like fragile cargo. As he approaches the chapel entrance, the noise swells. Flashbulbs begin popping before he is even visible, sharp and relentless, like a warning. Elvis pauses just out of sight, hand hovering at his side, realizing that once he steps forward, there will be no retreat. And then he hears them start calling his name. Inside the chapel, the air feels thick enough to push back. Every seat is filled, every wall lined with people pretending not to stare while doing nothing else. Cameras are positioned with care, hunting for the exact second Elvis Presley might break apart. Fans sob openly, their grief loud and tangled with their own needs, bleeding through the walls like a second soundtrack beneath the hymns. Colonel Parker stands off to the side, watching angles, already preparing to steer whatever happens next into something manageable. Elvis feels all of it pressing down at once. The uniform, the eyes, the expectations, the knowledge that this moment will be replayed and retold long after the pain dulls. For a heartbeat, he considers letting them have it, letting the collapse happen and ending the waiting. Instead, he does something else. He steps forward. He lifts his chin and raises a hand, not dramatically, not like a star commanding a room, but like a son asking for respect. He does not ask for privacy or mercy. He asks for silence, and he says it is for his mother. The request is simple enough that it catches everyone off guard. One by one, the noise fades. The whispers stop. Even the cameras hesitate. The room obeys. In that hush, Elvis leans over the casket. His movements are careful, almost ceremonial. From his palm, he slips a small keepsake into his mother's hand, something meant only for her. No announcement, no explanation. A private promise sealed in front of witnesses who cannot decode it. The lid begins to lower, and Elvis stays where he is until the last possible second, memorizing the shape of her face as if memory alone might preserve her. At the graveside, the pressure returns, heavier now. Earth waits. Voices tremble. Elvis stands straight, shoulders locked, refusing to bend. He feels hollowed out, like the ground has already claimed something from him. When it is over and people begin to drift away, he steps close to his father, away from the cameras, away from the crowd. He leans in and whispers something raw and unguarded. He tells Vernon that something in him was buried today too. Elvis leaves the cemetery on his feet, breathing, functioning, still alive. But whatever part of him made that possible does not come with him. The day after the burial, Elvis Presley is back in uniform as if nothing has happened. The fabric feels heavier now, tighter across his shoulders, like it is pinning him in place. Orders do not pause for grief. Schedules do not adjust for heartbreak. He is expected to stand straight, respond on command, and move forward like a man whose center has not just been ripped out and lowered into the ground. On base, the days are manageable. Routine still works in daylight. It is the nights that turn vicious. Sleep refuses to come, and when it finally does, it drops him straight back into the hospital room. He hears the machines again. He sees his mother's chest rise and stall. He wakes drenched in sweat, heart hammering, the silence afterward somehow worse than the dream. He lies there staring at the ceiling, waiting for morning to rescue him. In formation, he tries to be the same man. He answers when spoken to, keeps his face neutral, his voice steady. Letters from Memphis arrive anyway. Notes from family, bills, church messages. Each envelope feels like a hand reaching inside a wound that has barely begun to close. He reads them alone, folds them carefully, and locks them away, as if order might keep the pain contained. Friends notice the change before he does. The way his hands shake when the day finally slows. The way he lingers a little too long over a drink, just enough to take the edge off, just enough to quiet his thoughts. Someone offers him something stronger one night, something to help him sleep. He hesitates, then accepts, telling himself it is practical, temporary, controlled. It works. For a few hours, the hospital room fades. The beeping stops. The dreams soften. When he wakes, the relief is so sharp it scares him. He tells himself this is not a habit. This is a tool, a bridge over a bad stretch of road. He is still Elvis Presley. He can stop whenever he wants. The comforts begin to stack quietly. A drink to steady his hands. A pill to shut off his mind. Each one works just long enough to make the next feel necessary. No alarms go off. No one pulls him aside. The system around him is built to keep him functional, not whole. The first time he reaches for that pill on his own, without being offered, he pauses with it in his palm. Just for tonight, he promises himself. Years later, people told that week the way they tell legends, smoothing some edges and sharpening others. Some said the loss softened Elvis, that it opened him up and made his music ache in new ways. Others believed it carved out a hollow space that never stopped echoing, something he spent the rest of his life trying to fill with sound, sensation, and silence. The stories rarely agreed on details, but they all circled the same truth. Whatever left him that week never came back. Elvis himself almost never talked about it. When interviews drifted too close, he deflected with a joke or changed the subject. Yet the people who knew him best noticed the shift immediately. When his mother's name came up, his voice changed. It dropped, grew careful, protective, like someone pressing a finger gently against a bruise they did not want exposed. He did not dramatize her memory. He guarded it. Biographers would later trace lines, trying to map cause and effect. They pointed to that funeral as the beginning of his hunger for comfort, his dependence on things that could numb him when sleep would not come and quiet the thoughts that refused to stay buried. Most admitted the same thing in quieter print. No single moment explains a life, but some moments tilt it permanently. What cannot be ignored is how often that week reappeared, even when no one mentioned it. The way Elvis clung to familiar spaces. The way he built walls of routine and indulgence around himself. The way grief seemed to sit just beneath the surface, patient and waiting. When his mother's resting place was eventually brought home to Graceland, the symbolism felt unavoidable. The house that once held laughter and security now held something heavier, something final. Visitors walked past the site in hushed reverence, sensing without being told that this was not just a grave. It was an anchor. The heart Elvis buried never really left him. It followed him through stages and studios, through applause and isolation, through nights when the world expected the king and got a man instead. That is why people still call it the funeral that killed the king. Not because Elvis died that week, but because something essential did. What survived was talent, fame, and legend. What was lost was a kind of safety he would spend the rest of his life chasing, never quite catching, always just out of reach.